Once prosperous, Pawn Stars is now crumbling owing to bankruptcy and betrayal lawsuits. In an unexpected turn of events, detectives processed the Pawn Stars estate, a massive collection of riches left behind after gold and silver pawn shops filed for bankruptcy. Why were these abandoned? Something hidden in them? The answers could revolutionize Pawn Star knowledge. Interested in learning more? Like and subscribe to the channel to avoid missing the next big update. Corey Big Hoss Harrison, his son, spent life in prison in a nightmare. A bitter family feud threatens everything he's accomplished. A routine financial audit became a difficult investigation when police found suspicious items among the Harrison family company's hundreds of artifacts and treasures accumulated over decades. The Las Vegas Institute promoted Harrison through the History Channel show Pawn Stars. With tourists from around the world hoping to see Rick Harrison, his son Corey, and Austin, the gold and silver pawn shops became the most famous in the U.S. After detectives searched the massive collection, June Lee Russell's TV fame has faded. They found evidence that cast suspicion on the store's purchasing practices. This news is especially upsetting for the Harrison family, who are still reeling from Rick's son Adam Harrison's death earlier this year. Adam, 39, who, unlike his brother Corey, was quiet, died of a drug overdose. Rick Harrison's death in January 2025 shattered Las Vegas' close-knit society, which had watched the Harrison family rise. A family friend who requested anonymity said he sadly lost his son Adam. The corporation his father founded and his legacy are being thoroughly reviewed. This nightmare keeps getting worse. Following cash flow concerns at the once thriving company, financial auditors were hired to analyze its assets. The inquiry began innocently. The famous pawn shop expanded its store space to accommodate the influx of tourists after the show's success. The sitcom has surpassed its peak audience, thus it may be struggling with dropping TV ratings. Auditors' findings in the shop's enormous storage facilities quickly turned a normal financial audit into a major issue. The legal inventory contained historical artifacts with missing or doubtful documentation, antiques that may have been unlawfully imported, and even stolen objects from neighboring states. Material quantity is large. Are talking about thousands of artifacts acquired over decades, many of which predate the show's inception when documentation standards were possibly less tight, said Natalie Rodriguez, a former FBI art crime expert who has advised on previous investigations. Separating legitimate from unlawful purchases is a significant task. Investigators are especially concerned about Civil War items with contradicting records, which may have been stolen from historically relevant locations. It is also unclear if many of the collection's Native American relics were legally collected, making them potentially protected under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. Austin June Lee Russell gets investigated again. His legal difficulties threatened the show's happy family image in 2016. Russell faced legal risks when police searched his house and found cocaine and illegal firearms while investigating sexual assault charges he was never charged with. Russell pleaded guilty to felony weapon and gross misdemeanor narcotics possession. This led to 3-year probation. June Lee worked hard to address his legal issues and start over. Attorney Martin Cohen claimed most of the disputed products were bought then. He was not involved in any risky purchases. Buying power was zero. Just an employee. Investigators had Chumley's full cooperation. Rick Harrison, the Pawn Stars company's face and a historical artifact expert, faces a personal and professional crisis in the probe. Harrison often tells about how his father, Richard the Old Man Harrison, taught him the pawn business at a young age, emphasizing that success depended on knowledge and careful verification. From Parkinson's disease, Richard Harrison died at 77 in 2018, leaving Rick Harrison to run the family and business. The elderly man, known as the Old Man by millions of admirers, co-founded Gold and Silver Pawn in 1989 with his son Rick, setting the way for Pawn Stars, a 2009 global television success. Richard always thanked his father for teaching him about the industry. A former program producer who worked with the family for 7 seasons called the aging father fair. He was proud of creating something his descendants could inherit, and he would be devastated if the company faced such charges. As investigators assess the huge stockpile that inheritance is now at peril, they may have identified financial abnormalities that indicate long-standing tax issues, together with antique relics that could have been stealthily bought. Even though no charges have been filed, forensic accountants are investigating the show's complex corporate network. At Pawn Stars' peak, the Harrison family founded several Las Vegas businesses, including Rick's Rollin' Smoke. Harrison, who has worked at the pawn shop since he was a teenager and is being trained to take over the family business, is under investigation for possible money laundering and dubious cost allocations related to Corey's concern with Viper Room Las Vegas and the company's business agreements to manage these enterprises. The probe threatens his succession plan, which has been the subject of several episodes demonstrating his growth from a wayward young man to a talented businessman. Corey is trying to stay positive and help his father during this difficult time. Despite working with investigators and maintaining the business, a family friend revealed that he is still grieving his brother Adam. Despite its dismal atmosphere, the store is open. The family was devastated by Adam Harrison's January death. Adam declined the TV program because he desired a life without cameras, but the investigation has deepened. The footage shows he remains close to the Harrisons. Rick Harrison said his son had struggled with addiction for years in a touching address after Adam's death. His heroin overdose tragedy highlighted the opioid crisis affecting American families. "My heart will always hold you," Rick wrote. "Adam, beloved." Later, the anguished father discussed drug addiction and the opioid problem, which kills thousands of Americans each year. As the family grieves personal loss and a prospective company failure, the probe has drawn attention to them. Rick Harrison has fully cooperated with police, according to friends, saying that any irregularities were incidental and may have been caused by the business's rapid expansion during the show's peak popularity. Pawn Stars went from a modest pawn shop to a global brand quickly. Ellis Monroe, a reality TV business expert, says rapid development disrupts a small family firm's operations. Financial controls, acquisition rules, and filing processes must extend, which is difficult. Household Names accepted the query but stated that the network is not aware of or involved in gold and silver pawn shops' routine purchase operations. "People told me you can't box in Las Vegas when I went to City Hall after winning a pawn shop." The announcement stated that the show is not in production until these issues are resolved. The show was one of cable TV's most popular brands, inspiring many spin-offs and worldwide adaptations with over 600 episodes over 22 seasons. Millions watched Pawn Stars to witness the Harrisons and Chun-Li evaluate unusual goods, negotiate with colorful sellers, and argue frivolously. Rick Harrison's historical background and authentication processes for many store items added to the show's educational value. Paradoxically, this understanding makes one wonder how the store could have added troublesome products without suspicion. If true, these claims damage credibility. Miranda Jensen, a famous TV critic, said the show portrayed Rick as a highly skilled specialist who could immediately spot a fake or damaged item. The meticulously crafted picture contradicts the likelihood that the store bought fraudulent goods. Egypt, Greece, and other Middle Eastern countries with strict export rules may have produced some of the most worrying artifacts that investigators recorded. International antiquities standards have tightened in recent decades as more governments seek cultural heritage restitution. Dr. Kastner, a relic repatriation archaeologist, says items are leaving their borders in problematic ways. Without proper provenance investigation, buying stolen products from archaeological sites or illegally exported commodities from their home nation for a well-known organization that deals in historical relics is too easy and perilous. Dedicated watchers would need strong authentication. After the inquiry, episodes in which professionals were engaged to verify Harrison family concerns were re-evaluated. These occurrences demonstrate the family's authenticity and legitimacy. The fate of commodities whose provenance cannot be verified after the cameras stopped filming is now a concern. Margaret Winters, a Minnesota history teacher who visited the famous store in Las Vegas, said, "I've watched every show and always liked how meticulous they are with authentication. Rick always believed he would never buy anything without documentation. That and what we're hearing currently clash." The study also revealed this once thriving corporate empire's financial woes. Financial records reveal major cash flow concerns starting around 2022, when episode production slowed and sales decreased from peak popularity. Celebrity asset manager Thomas Keegan says smart investors diversify and invest when their earnings are highest, even if the business is one of the most visited attractions off the Las Vegas Strip. They expected interest to fade last time. "I believe the Harrisons have ventured into other areas, but it can be hard to maintain success after the initial buzz wears off." Richard, the older Harrison, complicates things after his 2018 death. The year before his death, he left one of his 3 sons out of his will, leaving Rick and Joseph to split his estate. The pawn shop's legal framework includes several assets and entities, making it harder for investigators to assign guilt for malfeasance. He recovered his reputation after his 2016 court troubles. He opened a sweets store near the pawn shop, emphasized on health, substantially dropped his weight, and frequently showed his recovery. Austin worked hard to improve his life after his court difficulties. According to a friend who knew Russell before he became famous on TV, Russell has stayed sober, focused on his health, and started genuine businesses outside of the pawn shop. His association with the show links the pawn shop to the investigation. Unfortunately, he wasn't involved in financial decisions or purchases. The investigation revealed the subtlety behind reality TV's staged scenarios. Pawn Stars portrays the daily activities of a real pawn store, although production required organizing and staging multiple trades, with sellers and merchandise rigorously inspected before airing. However, the camera's purchasing activities continue, creating two companies, one for normal customers and one for TV. Most reality TV shows work this way due to demand. According to Samantha Lewis, a television producer who has worked on similar series, you can't expect intriguing people with great items to come up for filming. Gold and silver enterprises struggle to maintain proper protocols for televised transactions and normal business activity during manufacture. Detectives continue to investigate the large inventory purportedly occupying multiple storage facilities outside the business, leaving the Harrison family's future uncertain. The gold and silver pawn business operates today. It's largely a tourist attraction and offers show-related items, not a pawn store. Its ongoing tourism proves its iconic significance. Not many know about the ongoing investigation. Thomas Mercer said, "We came from Australia to see the shop, when his family visited Las Vegas. My sons loved the show at home. Wanted to see the event site. We wanted to see Rick or Chum-Li, but they said none will be there today. Job problems and personal grief become an insurmountable burden. Friends claim Adam is more concerned with supporting his granddaughter and daughter-in-law since his death." While still fighting to save the company his father founded more than 30 years ago, a friend stated, "He struggled with drugs and oh my god, I took him to rehab so many times and every time he did really well." Rick, a lifetime boyfriend in Survivor, knew Harrison before TV fame. "I'll keep him in mind regardless of the probe's outcome since he started this company. Even though he's going through his roughest time after losing Adam in this inquiry, I've never seen him give up." The legal process is expected to take months as investigators determine which objects must be returned to their owners or countries of origin and what financial penalties the corporation may face. The Harrison family remains vulnerable. Their once admired success story warns against the underlying risks of rapid expansion and celebrity. The saddest part is how this damages Harrison's legacy as a 10-year gold and silver employee. He said the elderly man founded this company from scratch and worked hard to make something that could be passed down. Rick went further than his father expected. Tourism continues to flood the famous store on Las Vegas Boulevard, but it is currently being dismantled rather than passed on. Unaware that they may be witnessing the demise of a classic American success story. Television popularity can go to unheard of heights before collapsing. The Pawn Stars logo is popular in memorabilia and pictures. Frank Fritz's peaceful mansion hides a deadly secret under its floorboards. When they broke up the ancient flooring of the large Iowa mansion, the FBI expected normal evidence. Instead, they found enough to astonish even the most experienced detectives. Agents were floored by the discovery under the old American Picker Stars mansion, which made national headlines and shocked investigators and the public. Fritz headed to his Iowa farm after years of searching rural America for missing treasures. The rural Davenport home's rustic charm and history captivated him. This bond led him to buy the old farmhouse in 2013, even though it needed a lot of work. Fritz combined personal touches with Midwestern architecture to transform the derelict structure into a showcase for his varied ideas with local artisans and restoration professionals. Mississippi River Valley views from his residence are spectacular. It sits on 20 acres of sloping countryside near Davenport. Fritz marveled with the setting after filming many American Pickers episodes there. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to avoid missing Frank's shocking home reveal. The property's remoteness was his main reason for buying it, he told Midwest Living magazine. He then recruited Heritage Restoration's Thomas Miller and Sarah Johnson, Davenport architects, to help him turn the building into his dream retreat. The house was rundown. Johnson said it was an 1890s farm with structural issues that had been abandoned for over 10 years. Frank immediately saw its potential, good bones, and great location. Fritz and his design team didn't like designing a TV room. Instead, they prioritized comfort, authenticity, and creating a place to display his growing collection of vintage motorcycles and American souvenirs, half rustic cabin, half classic farmhouse, and half collector's paradise. Remodeled house was a mix of styles. Miller stated that it had no specific goal. It's the perfect example of Frank's clear, honest, and story-filled personality. During rehabilitation, structural stability was prioritized to preserve the old farmhouse for another century, stabilizing the base and strengthening drooping floors before cosmetic improvements. Fritz focused a collector on the interior's finishing details. His goal was sincerity. A house with 130-year-old charm and modern amenities. Fritz said, "I've spent my life looking for patina and history," during a rare house tour. "I wanted my home to feel loved and lived in for generations." Fritz grew increasingly reclusive after leaving American Pickers in 2020 and had a stroke in 2022. His massive Iowa estate protected him from health issues and the public eye. Although lights moved through the property at odd hours, neighbors rarely saw the former TV celebrity. His collection of antiques and vintage motorcycles grew, coming in unmarked trucks. Fritz's health issues are well known. After months, he recovered from his stroke, regained independence, and learned to walk. Despite his progress, acquaintances saw he had become estranged from his old social circles. His estate, once open for charity, is now closed to tourists. Security cameras and a gated fence surrounded the estate. Fritz maintained a few close friends while living alone. James Kenworth, a longtime motorbike maintenance partner, was concerned when Fritz stopped receiving calls and texts in early 2025. Kenworth phoned local officials to request a welfare check at the residence after weeks of silence. Scott County Sheriff's Department deputies found Fritz's home in disarray on March 5, 2025. The house appeared empty, but no one answered after repeated knocks. Mail was piling up and Fritz's automobiles were still there. The police tried to phone Fritz before breaking into the house. The home was strangely ideal, with no signs of malfunction or disturbance. His keys, wallet, and half-full coffee cup were on a table near the door and on the kitchen counter. No valuables were missing, but the house appeared abandoned. Local officials alerted the FBI Quad City field office when they noticed something unusual. Due to Fritz's fame and unusual situation, federal officials joined the investigation within hours. Although agents noted that numerous elements of the main residence had been renovated, their initial inspections found nothing unusual. The library stood out after installing beautiful hardwood floors. Fritz was known to prefer originals, so it was unique. Meredith Carver led the FBI probe, who hired forensic experts to inspect the premises. After 3 days of searching for Fritz, investigators found something significant. The library's floor pattern exhibited slight anomalies, and thermal imaging showed temperature changes beneath some freshly added hardwood, suggesting a gap or region beneath that didn't match basement sections. On March 9, 2025, FBI technicians carefully removed the library's wooden boards in search of a secure place. Instead, even seasoned operatives gasped at what they found. A hidden stairway led to a 15-square-foot room beneath the floor. With soundproofed walls, this space was built to hide. What they found in the secret compartment shocked the detectives. They found thousands of documents, some decades old, many old filing cabinets, and hundreds of meticulously organized leather-bound journals with accurate dates. The most surprising find was a wall covered in newspaper clippings and images strung together by scarlet thread to make a pattern that indicated a long-running investigation. Fritz expected antiques or expensive things. Agent Carver cordoned off the home and secured it within hours. Expert behavioral scientists and document analysts flew in from Quantico, Virginia, FBI headquarters. One of the agency's oddest investigations began with their arrival. FBI researchers examined the concealed room and found an astonishing image. Fritz's secret investigation of a series of Midwest unsolved crimes since the 1970s was recounted in the notebooks, which spanned 30 years. Fritz started writing a diary when a childhood friend disappeared while he was a teenager. Fritz's hometown was unknown, but documents proved that he had been conducting his own parallel investigation for decades, utilizing his excursions with American Pickers to interview witnesses and visit crime scenes while pretending to seek for antiques. Official investigators never saw his writings, in-depth talks, observations, or hypotheses. Worse, numerous recent writings suggested he feared for his personal safety and claimed he had found a pattern linking decades-old episodes. Fritz collected unreleased evidence, witness testimony, and police documents, according to FBI document specialists. Certain papers appear to have been obtained illegally, raising worries about police ties. On the wall were images of victims, suspects, and crime scenes, many with Fritz's notes. A private investigation room that could compete with many police organizations was found. In a secret press briefing, Agent Carver advised her bosses that Fritz traveled for more than antiques. His method for gathering information and making connections has been missed by law enforcement for years. This discovery raised questions about Fritz's safety and whether he fled in fear that someone involved in the cases had uncovered his work. The FBI immediately searched for Fritz and verified his classified files. As they examined Fritz's writings and archives, they found 17 unsolved murders and disappearances in Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, and Wisconsin between 1978 and 2010. Fritz meticulously documented parallels between the incidents, which official investigators had never linked. Fritz's latest diary entries highlighted the core premise, which included missing specific items from victims' homes, precise break-in methods, and interesting geographic patterns. Fritz believed the instances were linked to a network of collectors and antique dealers who utilized their companies for unlawful conduct, according to January 2025 records. His notes revealed that rare items sold at private auctions may have come from victims' homes, showing a trend law enforcement disregarded in favor of more overt objectives. Fritz had compiled a list of suspects, including several prominent antiques dealers, which surprised FBI experts. Even more surprising was that he had recorded seemingly harmless meetings with these people on American Pickers, noting suspicious behavior or words. A scary last phrase occurred in the latest diary entry. February 12, 2025. I and they know. I would meet Jay tomorrow to turn everything over if I died. The truth was hidden beneath the library floor after the FBI's Fritz's home finding became a multi-state investigation. Fritz's research was used to activate unresolved cold case units in 4 states to investigate his cases. Agent Carver created a secure task team near Davenport to verify Fritz's claims and search for the missing collector. After discovering that Fritz's final diary entries Jay was Joanna Wills, a former district attorney who had worked on several unsolved cases in the 1990s before being imprisoned, the investigation took another dramatic turn on March 15, 2025. Wills said Fritz contacted her in early February when agents approached her at her Chicago legal office, claiming they have documentation of multiple unsolved cases. Wills told detectives he planned to meet with me on February 13 with indisputable proof to identify the offender, but he never did. I called him often without success. I thought he needed hospitalization due to his medical history. As Fritz prepared to report his results, the FBI became increasingly anxious that he had disappeared. Clearly, someone knew his plans and tried to silence him. The Fritz case has become a murder and missing people investigation. The investigation made its first big discovery almost 3 weeks after Fritz disappeared on March 22, 2025. Agents searched hard. A narrow dirt road leads to an open field 30 miles from Fritz's mansion in a distant Mississippi River woodlands. Fritz's cell phone's location data from records before going offline on February 12 was used. Investigators found Fritz's SUV camouflaged. The truck appeared well hidden among trees and greenery to avoid aircraft observation. The car contained a laptop, several diaries, and a packed backpack, but agents couldn't find Fritz or any signs of combat. The laptop provided instant intelligence. Fritz created encrypted files with video recordings of his comments, results, and study backups. The last video, on February 12, showed Fritz nervously looking over his shoulder while talking. "If you see this, something is wrong. On tape," he said, "I've followed these people for 30 years. No one else can link the dots. Tomorrow, Joanna and I will review things, although I doubt I can make it. My home is under surveillance. I have buried my research and produced this backup to prevent discovery. Some names in my notes are implicated, you wouldn't believe. Find my items in auction records. The proof is there." Fritz provides backup places when the film ends. His second evidence stash was hidden elsewhere. When agents traced Fritz's instructions to an abandoned farm silo 20 miles away, they found waterproof containers with more papers, photos, and most critically, several objects Fritz had indicated as taken from victims' dwellings. These items, Fritz's inquiry, and his supplementary stockpile proof were never reported by the authorities. His notebook listed people were targeted by the FBI. April 5, 2025 saw coordinated raids at 16 Midwest locales targeting Fritz's suspects' storage facilities, private residences, and antique businesses. The operations found hundreds of stolen items in victims' homes in unsolved cases. What was more worrisome were the secret rooms, such as the one under Fritz's library, that organized actions and documented stolen valuables. Agents found a sophisticated factory in rural Missouri where stolen antiques had been altered to avoid identification. 3 prominent antiquarians were among the 12 jailed in the raids. The organization outperformed the police for decades, and 2 of the suspects were former police officers who had participated in early investigations. Their contacts allowed them to track the investigations and redirect attention when investigators got too close. FBI experts say this network has used lawful antique trade businesses to steal for at least 40 years. If necessary, victims' stolen violent artifacts were modified and held for years before being sold to naive collectors legally. The cases faded, but the money from these trades kept the players comfortable. Although Fritz's criminal network was dismantled, there was no evidence that its members knew about his encounter with former prosecutor Wilkes or stopped him from publicizing his findings. Investigators wondered if Fritz was captured and hidden or worse. A motorcycle mechanic in northern Minnesota recognized Fritz's name and photo from news headlines and called authorities on April 18, 2025, leading to an unexpected case breakthrough. In late February, a man who resembled Fritz but had a different name brought in a vintage Harley-Davidson for service, according to the mechanic. The technician stated the customer was nervous, paid cash, and requested no motorbike photos. He said he had bought provisions and would stay at the secluded cabin for a long time. His top request was for the mechanic to add a concealed compartment to the bike. FBI officers were sent to the region immediately to focus on isolated properties that fit the mechanic's broad geographical description due to his peculiar request. A modest hut accessible by a short route was found after 3 days of searching. The cottage was next to a tarp-covered motorbike that fit the description. The agents approached quietly, circled the property, and then announced themselves. Frank Fritz left the cabin. He was practically unrecognizable but had dyed hair, a goatee, and lost weight. Fritz asked, "Did you discover what I placed on the floor?" after the agents introduced themselves. He only went public and accompanied the agents after being assured that his research was collected and analyzed. Fritz confessed once the FBI arrested him. He conducted an unofficial investigation for decades after his childhood friend disappeared in the late 1970s. He visited crime scenes, gathered information, and made connections that law enforcement had missed throughout his years with American pickers. Fritz said, "I never intended to be an amateur detective," at the formal news conference. "Once I noticed patterns I couldn't ignore, I realized these weren't random crimes. I know how the antique trade grouped, linked, and measured them." Fritz was suspicious after finding items at private auctions that matched descriptions of stolen products from unsolved cases. As he got more aware, he recorded case similarities and monitored product market movement. His antiquities knowledge allowed him to recognize changes meant to obscure object provenance. Most ominously, Fritz said that he had met several network members and highlighted their legitimate businesses on American pickers. These conversations helped him stay covert and gather information. Fritz identified as an eager collector to detectives. "My discovery of a unique ornamental art clock at a Chicago private auction last year was important. I learned it was taken from a Wisconsin home where the owner was discovered dead in 1996. The clock was adjusted, but I recognized the particular mechanism when I casually asked about it. The seller's remark told me everything. They knew me and didn't like my questions." Fritz discovered his property was being observed in the weeks that followed. He started getting odd-hour calls. Strange cars stopped near his house. In early 2025, he contacted former prosecutor Wilkes and built a secret compartment under the library floor to protect his findings. Fritz said, "I knew they wouldn't only threaten me because they've killed to protect their activities. The night before my meeting with Joanna, I discovered someone was trying to pass through my security. I implemented my backup plan then. I pretended to be at home, hid evidence, and proceeded north with food and money while slinking out a basement tunnel I constructed." Fritz's incredible story and proof enabled one of the Midwest's largest discoveries. The FBI charged 23 criminal network members in June 2025 with theft, burglary, murder, and obstruction of justice. Over 4 decades, the gang committed scores of major thefts and at least 11 killings, according to prosecutors. The secret space under Fritz's library became famous in law enforcement as proof of one man's determination to solve system-dropped cases. The photographic records and laborious study were more extensive than many police investigations, and Fritz's understanding of antiques and collectibles allowed for linkages that would not have been possible otherwise, according to an FBI analyst. After police interrogations and grand jury testimony in multiple states, Fritz was placed under witness protection until the network's members were caught. He was relieved that his decades-long search for justice had ended and that his health, which had been unstable since his stroke, had improved with medical treatment. Fritz said simply when asked why he investigated crimes that didn't directly involve him, other than his childhood friend, despite the risks to his safety and life. In addition to solving crimes, Picker's pursuit became known inside the FBI for its unorthodox investigator. He overthrew a centuries-old criminal organization as a genuine antiques dealer with a keen eye. The Scott County Historical Society now owns Fritz's estate, hidden evidence, and secret chamber. The library floor, albeit forever sealed, reminds us of the incredible lengths one determined person went to find justice and the truth. The library floor is forever sealed, but one person's bravery and tenacity lives on. Leave your thoughts in the comments and like and subscribe to the channel to avoid missing the next amazing story. See you in future videos.